welcome everyone to Inside Hammer Strength, Origins, Innovation, and Real-World Impact. My name is Josh Johansson. I am the Product Marketing Manager for Hammer Strength. And today, man, we're going to have some fun. We are taking it back to where it all began, and we're going to look into the future a little bit. But I could not do this without my co-host and the guy that is leading the product development at Hammer Strength today, Mr. JP Stockton. JP?
Well, thanks, Josh. We're going to have a lot of fun today.
We are, man.
We have a lot of, there's been some great things that happen with Hammer Strength and with strength training in general.
Amen.
Over the last few years. It's been exploding. So we're going to talk about the history. We have some great guests. What we've seen really is maybe 15, 20 years ago, you had strength training enthusiasts and that knowledge was kind of housed with those people who were really into it.
Right.
But lately what we've seen,
explosion.
the last 10 years is explosion, and
yeah.
Really those end users, those general exercisers have more information coming at them than they ever have before.
They have, and I think social media is a big part of that too.
Yeah, and the influencers.
The influencers, that's right. All right, so a couple things, ground rules. So thanks for tuning in for those joining us here this morning and around the world. I want to encourage right away that you guys, in the very bottom right of your screen, there is a little Q&A and a chat. Drop your questions in, drop your comments in, because if we have time at the end, which I kind of maybe don't anticipate at this point, but if you have questions, drop them in, because if you do, at the end, one lucky person is going to get a Hammer Strength sweatshirt. So feel free to do that early and often, and we're going to get to that. But JP, I'll tell you what, people did not come here to hear us talk. So who do we have with us today?
Well, our first guest, he's a legend in the strength training industry.
That's right.
He started designing machines when he was 13 years old.
13.
With his father at Nautilus. He's been a firefighter. He's been a musician.
Musician.
He's the inventor of isolateral technology. He is the godfather of movement-based strength training. He is none other than Gary Jones, the founder of Hammer Strength.
Founder, man. But that is not all. We have another guest with us. His name is Luke Carlson, the CEO, founder of Discover Strength. And I'll tell you what, so Luke started as an athlete. He's going to get into this, but he also made his way up to be a strength and conditioning coach at the Minnesota Vikings for a little while. He has a master's in kinesiology, and I'll tell you what, he's also leading one of the most successful strength training organizations in the industry. He's a globally recognized speaker and leader on evidence-based training. And I'll tell you what, we're excited to have him. So welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be here. I'm basically here as a fan of Gary, and so that's my role in all this.
That's right. Well, I think I want to go to you first, Gary. So we've actually had this conversation. JP and I have talked about this. And I'll tell you what, for our listeners online, you're a difficult guy to find on the internet. There's a lot of Gary Jones.
A lot of Gary Jones in the world,
Very
right?
common name. But I think for those who are listening, I think they just want to know who you are, man. What's been your upbringing in the industry? Tell us about yourself.
Ooh, that's a long story. So I don't know. You know, my dad's industry. He was in the animal business, so I was raised in a zoo with an orangutan as a playmate in the 50s, which is a very, I'm not making this up, very unusual upbringing. And my dad was really into mathematics. There was no TV, there was nothing. I got enamored with complex mathematics, and, you know, it's kind of like being raised on a farm. You know, you need to make something, you go out and you make it, you weld it, you put it together. You know, to correct you, I wasn't really designing machines at 13, but at 13 I was helping my dad to design and build the prototypes for what later became Nautilus. And, you know, you learn how to figure out those things. In the early days of Nautilus, it was a common occurrence for me to get fired or quit by my dad. So I also became a large city firefighter. And we can swap our schedules. So when I, you know, was not fired or quit at a particular time, I would work Saturdays and Sundays and holidays on the fire department. But it was a great learning experience, because when The fire rings, when the bell rings in a fire station, you leave the building in 33 seconds. And when we get there, we don't schedule a meeting and we don't order parts. And our job is to fix the problems as fast as possible and, move on. And that was a great learning experience for me. And it's really fun to work someplace where everywhere you go, people are glad to see you. I mean, we come out of a burning building and the neighbors are bringing us lemonade and cookies. So how can you not like, that level of appreciation?
So I think we have to dig into a little bit more there on Arthur, your dad. So tell us about that lineage quick, because I think there's a lot of people that don't know that story.
Oh, well, we ended up immigrating to Africa, and then we moved around. He ended up in a country called Rhodesia at the time that was under conflict. And we were there when they lost the conflict. So we ended up leaving Rhodesia as refugees, came back to the United States in the summer of 1968. And my dad was trying to restart his business. And in the meantime, on my 16th birthday, August 1st, 1968, Arthur gets me a job at the local welding shop to help support the family because, that's where we are. And it was in that shop where nights, weekends, and holidays, we designed and built the prototypes for what became Nautilus. And it was, of course, a huge, success.
Right.
Back to your initial question, the hoopla around Nautilus became so big that, and I don't want to complain, but I just was kind of turned off by the hoopla. So
when you say hoopla, you mean like the...
Well, we were talking a little bit ago, right? You're not famous unless we talk about specific circles.
Right, yeah. So I didn't want that level of fame. I mean, I like being successful. I wanted Hammer Strength to be famous, and I want Hammer Strength to help people.
Right.
But, Gary Jones I'm the founder inventor. You know what I mean? But that's not, So I just never got on the internet. I mean, and if you know where to look and how to look, you can find some things on me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think...
Gary, let me give you more context there. So I mean, Nautilus starts in 1971.
Yeah.
By 1985, Nautilus is, I mean, for the viewer who's maybe a little bit younger and didn't live through it, I didn't live through it. I was 5 years old at the time, but I know the history. I mean, Nautilus is one of the biggest companies in the country. Your father is on the Tonight Show, on the Letterman Show. I mean, he is famous.
Right.
And so you said, I don't want to be famous. I mean, Nautilus, it was a race at that time between Nautilus and Nike for the biggest kind of sports product companies in the world. I mean, we've never seen anything like it. I mean, that was Nautilus in 1985.
Yeah.
Of course, 1986, Nautilus sells, and that leads to you deciding I'm going to move forward with this plate-loaded technology and launch Hammer Strength. But the idea that you don't want to be famous, I think the viewer needs to understand your father was
I didn't want the
beyond
distraction.
famous.
Yeah. And when I joke about it, when you grow up the way I did, it takes me a while to think about things. So I'm not I'm not a master of verbal and written combat.
English is a second language.
Yeah, and that's true. My mom was from Mexico, so English is my second language. And then when you grow up in a grass hut in Africa, okay, that's gonna maybe impact your, your social comfort, if you will. But I mean, I had I think a very wonderful life. I'm pleased. I'm happy, and I got nothing. I'm fit.
And to set that stage, I mean, Nautilus was a big deal because the machines were amazing. They represented a breakthrough in technology. And you sold a bazillion of these machines. But it wasn't just the machines. It was, well, here's how to use the machines.
Correct.
Here's how we actually train. And then it was everyone was buying these machines and opening up centers. What Nautilus did, beyond create a breakthrough in technology of how to actually engage in strength training, it made the idea of going to gyms something that the average American was now interested in. I mean, prior to 1971 in Nautilus, if you lifted weights, you were a little bit strange. You were doing it in a basement somewhere with, you know, some crude implements or a barbell and a dumbbell. And Nautilus said, no. The average attorney, the average guy, the average woman with a job, the average homemaker at the time could go to a Nautilus center and strength train. I mean, this changed the whole landscape, and it made the modern health club industry that we all love, it made it possible. It made the profession of personal training possible. These are things that I'm very interested in.
Oh, yeah.
This all started with Nautilus.
Right.
So Nautilus is, of course, the genesis. Your family is responsible for it. I've always looked at Hammer Strength as just the next step in kind of the next iteration in that genesis.
So Luke, you alluded to already that you're kind of not the same generation, right? But I think your business and your philosophies have been influenced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 73. So technically, I am 3 years younger than the average age of dead.
But you've been influenced by this, right? In how both your studies and how you've set up your business.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I came across everything that Arthur Jones wrote in 1998. I did a mentorship program with the Minnesota Vikings. Our head strength and conditioning coach was the assistant strength and conditioning coach for the Washington Redskins for a number of years when they won all the Super Bowls. That strength coach was Dan Riley. Dan Riley learned everything he knew from Arthur Jones. And they were using all Nautilus machines. And at the time, Hammer Strength had just launched, and they bought every Hammer Strength machine. So when I was 18 years old, I was a guy that only liked to barbell squat and deadlift and bench press and power clean. And then I walked in the Minnesota Viking facility, and it was nothing but Hammer Strength machines and Nautilus machines. And I thought, okay, this is a different way of training. And I spent that year learning about it. Within a year, I was hired, and I worked there full time for 4 or 5 seasons and just personally trained professional athletes all day long while I was going to undergraduate school and graduate school. And of course, fast forward, I thought, this is awesome for training athletes. But the reality is, this would have more impact on the average fitness consumer than it would an athlete. And so I said, I'm going to start a business where we serve normal people. Love athletes. I love normal people more than athletes. And I think normal people now, the scientific evidence absolutely supports that a normal human has more to gain from strength training than even an athlete does. The most important strength training occurring anywhere in this country right now is not among athletes. Well, it's my 76-year-old mother.
Yeah, and Gary, I think you dive into this, man, because you talk about this all the time. Athletes, everyday warriors.
Yeah. Well, the ones, which is what I call only about 1 person in 7 of the general public is what I call a regular participant in a realistic fitness program. And the biggest opportunity is to help the 607s. The ones I don't have to worry about. I mean, you can beat them up, and guess what? They're going to work out tomorrow no matter what. I mean, and literally, they go out on the field and get the bejesus beat out of them, and the next day they're in the gym working out. I mean, that's how dedicated these people are. And they're amazing people to be around, obviously. But, and, you know, to win a football game, especially at professional level, is in hundredths of a second and 2 inches further of the ball down the field. So, you know, anything that they can do to get that extra 1 inch of travel or that extra 1/100th of a second faster on the field, they're going to work at. But the real opportunity is to help regular people just to improve their lives.
So I want to dive into that a little bit. So Luke, you hit on this. Obviously, we have the lineage of the Jones family here. We have Arthur starting Nautilus. Gary, tell us, when you broke off to do Hammer, what was, if you could name it, what was the problem that you were actually trying to solve?
Well, for those people that know me, I call it chasing cinnamon rolls. Imagine that you were hungry, you love cinnamon rolls, and you were in a mall you never been to before. and you start moving in the direction of the odor of the cinnamon roll, and you go down the aisle and it gets weaker. You know you're wrong. You go in. So I just had this impression, this overriding drive, that we could make the machines more comfortable, more ergonomically correct, and make them more efficiently so that people could afford them.
That's right.
And I just started moving in that direction. I was in the process of inventing three-dimensional ergonomics and isolateral and the technology to visualize that. So I just started piecing it together. And it's when as you know now, I mentor the engineers in Hammer Strength and Life Fitness.
Yep.
But the big thing I teach all the time is the Wright brothers didn't invent a 747.
Yeah.
Nor did they know what it was going to look like. But they were fanatical about aviation. And I'm fanatical about fitness, overall fitness. And so how do you make it better? How do you make it easier to understand? You know, to me, I have unusual points of view. I think the most important muscle in the body, this is a trick question, is the brain. Because if homie don't like it, homie won't do it. Okay? And that's just the bottom straight line. You know what I mean? So, and then how do I make the person like to exercise? Now,
the analogy that we would use to that point is you can use a lot of different strength training equipment or implements, a dumbbell, a barbell, other types of machines. But what I use as an analogy is horse-drawn carriage is going to get you there, but I'm telling you, the Rolls-Royce is a better experience.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what a hammer strength machine represents. And it's represented that to me for, over 25 years.
Can I
thank
use
you.
that in marketing?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to.
Yeah.
So I was just moving in that direction. And, and as we learn more, the big breakthrough, which in hindsight sounds quick, but it took years and years and years, I called it natural motion. I noticed that old athletes, but you got to remember, machines at that time in history had perpendicular handles that put your joints in locked positions. They moved in straight lines perpendicular to the body, even the Nautilus machines. So, and I noticed that people did not move that way naturally. And then I came up with the logical conclusion that one of the best examples of that was martial arts. Because that's a form of combat that goes back thousands of years before there were weapons. So you had to be efficient with your body. So I studied Taekwondo, okay? And then I wrote a computer program as a fully functional human that lived inside of a 3D computer, okay? And I called him Reggie, and I taught Reggie Taekwondo. And then I used that as a three-dimensional mold, to build exercise machines, okay, that moved the way people naturally move. Because, 3,000 years ago, you had to learn how to efficiently move your body to defend yourself and to attack your opponent.
And that's an
what
important
martial
point, though, because leading up to that point,
Yeah.
the mentality was to design for a muscle isolation, right?
Right.
And you started thinking about it in terms of movement.
Movement. Yeah, to me, the purpose of the muscles is to move the body. That's the bottom line. If you, once again, different points of view. Billions of years of evolution, the human body is designed to hunt and gather for food and water every day. The requirements for that are what I call full body coordinated complex motion. Okay, so I was moving away from Arthur.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is your first kind of divergence, because he would always say function dictates design.
Right.
So we need to understand, what is the role of the pec? It's horizontal adduction of the humerus. Okay, let's apply resistance against that. So clearly you were influenced by that. Your departure was, I don't want to interrupt, go ahead.
No. It is, you're right, but I would argue with my dad, and he'd get really mad at me. I would throw something down on the ground and say, okay, pick that up and just use one muscle. And his response would be, "You're fired again." You know? So, but in hindsight, it's kind of obvious. I mean, you know, and the whole world has moved in that direction.
Right.
I mean, so not just exercise machines. You buy an electric drill. It's got a handle that's twisted and rotated, okay, to a neutral position. All right. That is, I mean, you know, it's a big deal.
So you would say, I mean, so for our listeners, as I was gathering that, you're thinking a more efficient thing to train on, unit to train on, a simple one, and one that has purity of motion. So JP, I'm going to go to you for a minute because, you know, JP, you're leading our product development here. Would you say that the problem that Gary was trying to solve is kind of the same thing that you guys and your engineering teams are looking at today?
Well, Gary mentioned that he continues to mentor me and my teams, and so
Right.
we take those principles of movement, those principles of simplicity, those principles of manufacturing efficiency, and we build that into everything that we do and talk about today. You know,
Right.
the machine that's sitting behind me, we call it a pendulum X squat, right?
Yep.
It's not what you would consider to be a traditional pendulum, but we, instead of looking at how does everybody make a pendulum machine, we looked at what movement do we want out of this? How do we want the person to get in a full contracted position and train and strengthen that particular movement? We looked at the old H squat that you did 30, 35 years
story.
ago, right?
Yeah.
The two-story machine,
That's
right?
right.
And
I had
looked
one
at
of those.
That's fantastic. And we
If you're
looked
watching,
at
you need to Google an image of the H squat.
Yeah, it's a body unfolding machine. We had to
right,
call it
that's right.
something. But it takes you from the fetal position to a full straight line position, okay, and ergonomically correct. And
Yeah.
that's as small as it can be. And then
It's
there,
better to have a tall ceiling.
yeah, it's over 9
could fit
feet
in
tall.
here.
It's 9 feet square. It weighs 1,000 pounds with no weight on it.
Yeah.
Okay, is the biggest
Wild.
plate loading machine ever made. And there's some funny stories about how it came about, but you know, whatever.
Well, so I want to make sure I hit on something here because JP, both you and Gary talked about simplicity. Luke, going to you, man, as an operator, what does that mean to you, having, you know, knowing the problem that they're trying to solve in simplicity, efficiency, you know, making things feel pure? What does that mean to you guys?
Well, this is what I've experienced, and this is since 1999 when I first trained a professional athlete up till today, where we train thousands and thousands of people every day across all of our locations across the country. And I've used hammer strength machines forever. It means a couple things, or here's my observations. An NFL football player that's beat up in a game on Sunday, when they come to strength train on Monday, their body is beat up. They can't grab a barbell sometimes. It's not comfortable to put a barbell on their back and do a squat. The reason we loved hammer strength machines among our NFL football players is they could strength train hard on a hammer strength machine and it felt comfortable because of their ergonomics, because of the hand position. We could get a guy that had a shoulder issue, an elbow issue, a knee issue, and say, well, try this machine. And they said, wow, this feels great. It feels incredible. Not to mention we had machines to cover things like the posterior deltoid and the rotator cuff, et cetera. But they could train hard on a well-designed leg press and say, well, I probably couldn't squat today because I got beat up in the game yesterday, but I can train on this equipment. Well, let's fast forward to 2025 as we're having this conversation. We have clients who are 90 years old and 80 years old and 70 years old that have had every type of orthopedic ailment you can imagine, from a total hip replacement to knee replacement, and we can feel very comfortable putting them on a hammer strength machine and saying, we're going to train at a really high level of intensity. We love to train in muscle failure, and the machine is so comfortable that they say, oh, okay, that felt good. Now, let's be clear, it didn't feel good. My muscles burning like crazy. Orthopedically, it felt great.
Right.
And so to me, when we talk about ergonomic design, we talk about biomechanics, when we talk about comfortable feel, that has incredible relevance to the professional football player. It has incredible relevance to my 76-year-old mother and everything in between. And we've built a business around that.
And so that's a huge point because we've been talking about this for a couple, well, really for the last several years. Gary, you say something where you say hammer, when you close your eyes, you should feel no sensation of linkage. And linkages are a big thing that I want to get into here today, but tell us, what does that mean to you, sensation, no sensation?
Well, actually, it was a customer told me about it. He said that he personally, because he's running a business, all right, he could only train early in the morning before he opened up or afterwards. And he said what he liked about training on my machines, and obviously I like it, he goes, when nobody's in the gym and it's just him, and he puts his hands on the machine and moves, he said there's no sensation of linkage. It's just pure motion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was not my phrase, it was his phrase. I've repeated it. But he's right, and that's kind of, which is what I was trying to do. I wanted to make the machines more comfortable, more enjoyable. A corny saying, but feel how an exercise machine feels is as taste is to food. Okay?
Absolutely. God, that is that's not corny. That is the perfect way to describe it. Absolutely.
But the science of diet,
I know where you're going with this.
okay, you know where I'm going, is not relevant to the business of dinner.
Yeah.
Okay? So a PhD in nutrition can, and they do regularly, there's all these articles about what we should eat. Okay? But it's a chef that prepares a dish that customers stand in line to pay for and to eat.
Yes.
Okay? And so to me, the greatest opportunity to help the most people is to be good chefs. Okay? And it's not to pick on anybody because there's a lot of people that work on this. We as an industry have spent so much time and energy focused on what's the perfect workout, what's the perfect number of reps, what's the perfect speed of motion, what's the perfect range of motion. And the average person who has a life, a dog, a wife, kids, and a job, and a yard to take care of, doesn't have time or interest to want to even deal with that. They want to be healthy. Why do people work out? To me, my personal opinion, if you boil everything away, what do people really want? Okay? They want to be able to participate in activities and adventure without pain and without fear of injury.
That's right.
That's what they want. And they want to do that in the minimum amount of time possible. The most precious thing to a user, my opinion, is their time, their energy, and their interest. Okay? That's another thing that when coaches ask me, what do I focus on? Do not ever waste the user's time, energy, and interest. They have a limited amount of time, energy, and interest. You want to get the most results in the least amount of time, and you want it to be such a pleasant experience that they're eager to come back the next time.
So I'll play the antagonist.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because there's a lot of people that would say, well, if we have more gadgets and adjustments and complexity, isn't that more sophistication? Isn't that better for the exerciser?
Well, you're absolutely, in a certain phrase, I will totally agree with him. In a perfect world, if you have an infinite amount of time, infinite amount of energy, and an infinite amount of interest, you're absolutely, there are some fine tweaks there. But the average person, if you just go sit in a corner in a health club and watch the average people train, okay, most people, and you're an operator, the only thing they change is the weight. Most of them don't even adjust the seat.
That's so true. And I'm not ripping on your father. I would never do that. But a medics machine used in a health club is very rarely used correctly because there's so many different adjustments.
People don't get
Everyone
it.
we hire has a degree or an advanced degree in exercise physiology. Every workout we do is a supervised one-on-one or three-on-one workout. So professionals are always setting up the machines. We still love the simplicity of a hammer strength machine. When we buy a new hammer strength machine and put it in our locations, we put it into what's called an exercise menu, which is how we're going to set the seat, how we're going to coach it. And I was just writing out the exercise menu for the new super squat. And I loved when I got to how to adjust the seat. There is no seat adjustment. It's good to go. Like, we love it, and our exercise professionals love it because they can spend more time actually coaching the client. They can focus on being a chef. They can focus on being present with the client. Now, that only works if the machine is designed in a way where it is incredibly eclectic and you can have a diverse user use it comfortably. And from my experience, hammer strength machines do that so incredibly well.
Well,
Mission
that's
accomplished.
what I was trying. Yeah, mission accomplished. But no, but does every hammer machine fit every person on the planet? No.
Right.
Okay. So my wife is 5 feet tall, 98 pounds. Used to be a ballerina. Okay, she can use 25 or 30 of the 50 or 60 hammer machines that are out there. Shaquille O'Neal at 350 pounds, 7'2", he can use 25 or 30 of the machines.
Right.
Maybe not the same machines as my wife, okay, but different people. If a hammer machine fits you, and it doesn't fit everybody, I don't make that claim, you're going to love the feel of it.
And Gary, I might disagree with you a tiny bit because I've gone 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", up to 400 pounds. Down to 100 pounds and 4'10", and very rarely can we not make a machine fit where the person doesn't feel like, finally, I found a machine that fits for me. And these are polarized ends of a spectrum. So I think you're almost downplaying how versatile the machines are.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't like to overpromise, underdeliver. It's like, and some people are really, really picky. And they deserve to be picky if they're spending their money, time, energy.
I've just had plenty of people who are 6'9" that they say, finally, this is a machine that works for me. And I've had people that are 4'9" that say, finally, this is a machine that works for me. And it's the same machine, right? And so a tremendous amount of versatility.
So I want to jump into a new segment talking about the philosophy, because this is something that is at the heart of the brand, at the heart, it's the lifeblood of what we do. Machine-based training. So Luke, I'm going to go to you first on this because you just got done, I think it was maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, with a podcast. So by the way,
it's fantastic
Luke
podcast on machines.
Luke has a great podcast. Go check that on Spotify, Apple. But you just got done talking about how machine-based training is awesome, and you went into the efficacy of that. Can you expand, just for our listeners here, on kind of what you're seeing in your facility and what research actually shows about machine-based training?
Yeah. First of all, in the old days, we always said it's not the tool, it's how you use the tool that really matters. And so machines, free weights, they're great. We now have growing body of evidence that says machines just flat out have some advantages over free weights when it comes to strength and hypertrophy. And so one of them is, of course, the concept of variable resistance. And frankly, when your dad started making Nautilus machines, we didn't have that much research on, does variable resistance actually work? And now we have a decent amount of research that says, yeah, if you can vary the resistance throughout a range of motion, you produce greater gains in strength and hypertrophy. Yes, if you have a dumbbell or barbell, can you still produce results? Yes. But we have this growing body of evidence that says a free weight works better. What I think is so interesting is most people in our field are unaware of that. We read studies where people are using variable resistance, and what they're doing is taking a barbell and putting chains on the end of it, and they're saying, we've invented variable resistance. And I scratch my head and I think Arthur Jones was doing that in 1960 in Africa, right? This is primitive variable resistance. And what's interesting is that particular young researcher that published the paper that the chains worked in terms of variable resistance, if you ask them offline, hey, what do you prefer, machines or free weights? They'd say, well, bro, I'm definitely a free weight guy. And my response is always, did you know you tried to make your free weight act more like a machine? Right? That's literally what a well-designed machine does. And so we have this kind of dogmatic approach. I'm a free weight guy or a machine guy. First of all, resistance is what matters. And I think we could be open-minded to using machines for our source of resistance. And there's just so many limitations of a free weight, so many things that a free weight can't do. And of course, none of this is new. new. Your dad started all of this in 1971. And so we've built our businesses on, yes, we have free weights. I mean, we have a set of adjustable dumbbells. Everything else we use is a machine. And that's for athletes, that's for non-athletes, that's for someone that's 80 years of age. What I find interesting is in every other area of kind of human evolution, we progress in terms of technology. I'm looking out a window right now at your parking lot. There's not a single horse-drawn carriage in that parking lot, right? Horse-drawn carriage, reliable, safe form of transportation for hundreds of years. We moved beyond to the automobile. I flew home from Washington, D.C. last night in an airplane. Right? An airplane. That's how I traveled across the country. So we have these kind of evolutions in technology, and we all jump on board with it. I mean, I have an iPhone, right? I have a smartphone.
That's right.
I don't have a flip phone, but yet we still cling to outdated technology in exercise. We're still dogmatic about I got to use a free weight or a machine or a kettlebell. And it's like, well, a kettlebell was really popular 400 years ago in Russia. We could consider moving beyond that in terms of technology. And I think our customer cares about it. I go to fitness conferences of all kind. I serve as the chairman of the board of directors for the International Health Club Association, love health club operators. And there's one conference I go to that focuses on the technology side of health clubs. And of course, technology to all the health club operators means what? It means what's your tech stack in your business look like? Technology means how is your customer interfacing with a digital experience? For me, technology always means when I'm engaged in resistance training, what is the technology I'm using? That's the most important technology.
Yeah.
So I look at
The
hammer
movement.
strength as technology,
Yeah.
the movement as technology. I think that's the most important technology, more so than tracking my steps or tracking my activity. Why can't we have technology be a part of the activity? And to me, that's what a hammer strength machine has represented for 30 years. 30 years of me using hammer strength machines.
That's
So
right.
go home. I don't need to be here.
But we've talked about athletics a little bit, and I just want to touch on this because you've been in athletics. You've worked with coaches and athletes for decades, right? And me, from a product perspective, my portfolio covers free weights. We cover racks. We do selectorized. So a little bit of
everything.
a little bit of neutral stance
Yep.
on this, but you know, when that athlete is chasing that hundredth of a second, and what we look at is most athletic rooms are filled with racks and barbells. How many barbells can we get moving? And what we'll hear is, well, that's the most sophisticated way to train these athletes, and it's the most efficient way for me to get a team through this room. So can you address maybe a strength coach on how he can incorporate a machine-based training into his program and not lose that efficiency?
So this is where I think we've gone backwards as a strength and conditioning industry. So in the late 80s, early 90s, from the Cincinnati Bengals weight room to the Washington Redskins, now Commanders, to the Minnesota Vikings, you'd walk into one of those facilities and you'd see Nautilus machines and hammer strength machines. And yes, there was a barbell, but when I was in the NFL for 5 years, we never did a barbell squat ever. Once. We never did a barbell squat. We had a hammer strength leg press, a hammer strength iso leg press. We had a Nautilus Power Plus leg press. We had 7 different leg press machines. So we valued the squatting motion. We just wanted to do it in a way that was biomechanically a little bit more efficient, where someone could get to muscle failure, and they failed because their glutes and their quads actually reached muscle failure, not because there was a weak link of the low back and we weren't vertically compressing spinal columns. And to a player, they said, I squatted all the time in college. I much prefer this leg press. Behind you, I'm staring at your pendulum squat. I'm telling you, if every Division I strength coach in the country had 15 of those, 99 out of 100 Division I football players, I'm just picking football because there's big investment in weight rooms there, they would choose that over a barbell squat. They'd train on it twice and say, this feels better. I feel like I got more muscular recruitment. This is awesome. We still are just romantic about things like barbell squats. There's a place for it. But where I was going with that is in the old days, we had all of these machines and some free weights. What I've noticed over the last 2 decades is reversed back to only free weights. You go into these weight rooms now and it's just rack after rack after rack after rack, and then logos everywhere, and people say this is a beautiful weight room. I said this weight room represents like technological artifact, right? This is how we trained literally in 1950 and 1960. So if you're into free weights, I think that's fine. Have some machines also to incorporate. There was a recent review a recent survey of Division I college strength coaches, highly educated strength coaches, and they said, if a player had a broken hand, how would you have them train today? And the vast majority of respondents said, I wouldn't have them train. If you can't grab onto a barbell, how could you train? And I was raised in an NFL organization where we used a hammer strength rear delt machine. We used a hammer strength external rotation. We used a hammer strength pullover. We could train everything if you had a broken hand. And let me tell you, guys had broken hands all the time. And so if your only tool is a barbell, I think you're going to be limited in how effectively you can train someone. Of course, in an athletic setting, that applies to the general population as well. So I would just say be open-minded to incorporating all of this. You know, my first experience on a hammer strength machine was pull movements. We thought, I was fine doing barbell bench press, but when you could do a pull movement on a hammer strength row in this range of motion, a hammer strength row here, a hammer strength row here, a hammer strength row, it changed upper back training. And when you go to most of these Division I collegiate weight rooms today, their pulling motions are maybe a banded chin up and maybe a cable pull down machine. There's so much more out there. And once you train in these other pull movements, you love them. Now, I still love the push movements. One of the things I've loved about hammer strength is every year, every few years, there's new machines that came out. I can tell you, being at the Vikings training camp where we bought the new hammer strength isolateral bench press, we got rid of our Nautilus Power Plus bench press. It replaced it. The nickname, I didn't come up with it, was the Cadillac. Everyone called it the Cadillac. Have you trained on it? Players loved it. All the strength coaches loved it. And let me tell you, we had a barbell bench. No one used it. We trained on the Cadillac. And that was the beauty of hammer strength, is every year, every few years, there was a new machine that came out. You always bought something new. And that's the one thing that you all have kept going, right? We look forward to new machines all the time, right? 2 years ago, we bought a hammer strength isolateral leg press. Now you have a super squat. I have 4 locations across the country that have had super squats delivered in the last week. And all the talk across our system is how excited we are about using the super squat. You give us something to look forward to in terms of kind of this technological innovation.
Well, I appreciate that.
That's a hats off.
Right.
And now, Gary, I still love the really old machines.
No,
in my garage machine, I will have the first generation of many of your machines because I just am old school and love some of the stuff you made in the late 80s.
The Wright brothers didn't invent a 747, you know?
So
getting better.
So Gary, Luke brought up some points here that I think are important for everyone listening. You know, we talked about this at dinner last night. The law of opposites. Can you go into that a little bit? Because he was talking about push and pull. What's the philosophy there for hammer?
Well, where do I begin? In order to safely move, okay, you need to be safe at deceleration, which is the opposite motion. And then the law of opposites is also a business thing. In fitness, I have discovered, and we're inventing new machines. It's kind of like being a salesman. Not every new machine you invent is going to be a big seller. But when you do invent something new that people really, really like, one of the things I always learn, I'd apologize for getting excited about it, is instantly, don't argue about it. You know what I mean? Just do it. Build the opposite motion. Because it too will be a popular seller, okay? And which is the whole point. If it's selling well, that means people like it. If they like it, they're using it, so they're getting results. So the law of opposites, but it's also true, you know, I believe, for example, baseball pitchers, their primary problem, okay, is they can't safely decelerate their arm from a pitch.
That's true.
Okay? And as you know, not public yet, I'm working on something for that specific problem. Okay? So that's the whole point. And you have to be prepared for that. You know, and then you actually played sports and coached people, and now some people will take offense at this. I apologize in advance. Nothing to pick on anybody. What's the primary direction of football?
The primary direction of football.
Yeah, when you're playing football, what's the direction of football?
Going forward?
Yes, down the field.
Yeah.
I'm going to tease you. Are you sure about that?
I'm going to say no. I feel like I'm walking into a trap right now.
No. I'm teasing. Of course, you're moving that way, okay? And it's related to all the things that you were talking about earlier. Okay, so now what's the primary direction, or I should say the only direction, of gravity. Down.
Yeah.
Okay, therefore, what's the direction of resistance when you're training with a barbell?
Yeah. Always one direction.
Always direct direction. Okay.
Unilateral resistance.
Okay. So,
Or
not to be
unidirectional
corny,
resistance.
not to be corny. So, if you're in the business of kicking somebody's ass in that direction, okay, why do we train in that direction?
You're going to answer that question, not me. But
I was waiting for the answer too.
No. It's just
rhetorical.
logical.
Yeah, it is.
It's a rhetorical question. So, I mean, does a football player who's a tackle, when he's chasing his opponent down on the field, just before he has contact, is he going to come to a complete stop? Of course not. Is he then, after coming to a complete stop, going to reposition himself so that he's standing perfectly square?
probably not.
Probably not. Is he then, after chasing his opponent down, is he come to a complete stop, reposition so he's standing perfectly square, is he then going to clean and jerk his opponent?
Never.
Never. Okay. So my question is, why do they train that way?
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not that barbells are bad, and if that's all you got, you do what you can, and you can get very fit with barbells. Okay, but it's not as much fun, it's not as comfortable, et cetera, et cetera.
So then, and in general fitness, then you're saying with the training the opposite, people shouldn't just train the glutes, right? It's not just all about the butt. You got to get the rest of it too.
Yeah, no, you need, if you can't safely decelerate, you're painting yourself in a corner.
Yeah.
You're not as resilient as you could be. Okay.
Tripping over the curb,
Yeah.
catching
Right.
yourself, right?
Right. So yeah, I mean, people don't get injured. I mean, and nowadays with all the videos, I mean, just look at the videos of people getting hurt on the field of battle. Okay? And it's not when they're standing still, doing a perfect clean and jerk or whatever motion you want to do. They're off kilter. They're this, they're that. They got whacked from the side. And so the resilience comes from this variety. And not just football, the direction of life is down the field. Okay? And that's where machines, not to insult anybody, do better than gravity, because gravity is vertical.
Well, and I think this goes back to, Luke, you were talking about this, the technology, right? Not necessarily a screen in front of you, but the technology, the feel of the movement, the purity of the movement. JP, as Luke was talking, I was thinking about something for you. Why do you think it is? Because we introduced with this explosion, this desire for more plate loaded, more machines, just kick them out and we'll buy them. Why do you think that continues to thrive even as trends in fitness are changing? What would you say?
Well, I do think that social media is a big part of that. I think influencers are a part of that, but I also think it's the creativity that you gain in machines, right? Some things that you can't get with general free weights, different movements, different experiences, different ways to train. And, going back to your analogy around taste, right? There's a lot of different ways to train a particular movement, and people are hungry for that. They want creativity in their exercise, and there's more demand being put on operators to feed that hunger, right? And so they're looking for ways to differentiate themselves. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, so maybe you can address that.
No, I just totally agree with everything you said, for sure. We want the variation and the variety of the different movements. Let's be clear. Research says we could probably do the same basic exercises for over the long haul and produce great results. but that's boring.
Right.
I think a trainee wants to look forward or looks forward to getting to train different muscle groups in different ways on well-designed machines. That's the joy. To me, that's the joy of training. I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago, I was in Orlando. We got together with about 100 strength training practitioners from around the globe. We had people from 5 different countries, as far away as Australia. And, you know, many of Gary's old friends were there, and Ellington Darden and Jim Flanagan. And we sat around at lunches and at the bar and at restaurants talking about equipment, talking about machines all night. And we said, if you could only have, you know, 5 machines to train your upper body from the first era of hammer strength, what would the 5 be? I mean, people are into machines. Like, once you train on a well-designed machine, you become a machine junkie. Right. I got a buddy that's about 2 hours north of here in Brainerd. He's got 75 machines in storage that he's not even using, and they become collector items. Some people collect cars, some people collect old hammer strength machines. And so I think looking forward to training on something that's comfortable, that's got great ergonomics, it's a passion.
So, Luke, one thing here, you know, as you continue to lead and you know, expand upon Discover Strength, what is something, as you look at hammer in general, how has that helped to shape your training culture, just bringing in hammer strength in general? What would you say?
Yeah, well, for us, we got to have sophisticated tools. I mean, that's part of our brand, is we want to have well-designed machines. And Hammer Strength has done that for us. I mean, the business started 20 years ago, and we obviously continue to expand. And so for us, it's a foundation of having sophisticated tools for our clients, but not just our clients, for all of our exercise physiologists. Tomorrow, we'll have our state of the company meeting. We've flown people in from all over the country, and we'll be together, and we'll have a meeting in the middle of the day and talk about our year, talk about next year, talk about where the company's at, and then we'll have a Christmas party that night. But I owe it to all of our exercise physiologists to put the best tools in front of them. We have this vivid description of our envisioned future, and we talk about the value we provide to an exercise physiologist, and what we specifically say is the best tools made, so the master of the craft, and actually, like your terminology, the chef, that's really the right lens. They need great tools to work with, and that's what Hammer Strength has been for us. So it matters for the consumer, but we're trying to attract and retain great exercise professionals. They need great tools to work on. And so we buy Hammer Strength plate loaded, we buy Hammer Strength selectorized, and we have forever.
Yeah. You know, the simplicity plays a role also in durability, which I want to get to you on here, Luke. But what were the 3 things, Gary? What makes a machine?
Well, you need to analyze the motion, you know, and what is the natural motion, and you want to analyze what's the appropriate resistance at different stages of the motion. You know what I mean? And what's the best way to apply that resistance? Okay, and you know, you want it to be durable. So I'm, as you know, fanatic. You call it my sandbox. You know, I keep a limited list of components and things that we use to make hammer machines, which makes them more durable. Years ago, I mean, there was one of the trade shows. They had a question and answer with operators like you, boom, boom, boom. And somebody in the audience asked a question, and I apologize in advance because it's kind of self-serving, but they were talking about maintenance. And this guy was an operator, he had, I don't know, 30 or 40 different clubs. And somebody who was new was saying, well, you know, what about service? And he goes, oh, yes. He says, it's like any product. You got to service your car, you got to service the tractor, you got to service anything. He goes, and I write a check every week to every company in the industry for servicing their products. He goes, but I don't remember ever writing a check to Hammer Strength for service.
So
now, my gosh, the durability piece is so true. And actually, I feel bad for y'all, because when someone buys a Hammer Strength machine, they don't need to buy another one ever. And so you kind of wish it would break down so you get a new one. I mean, but for us, we tell all of our franchisees that, hey, when you buy this, you're making an investment for life. And even if there's wear and tear that shows on it, theoretically down the road, if you put a blindfold on and you sat on it, the machine is always going to perform the same way for the next 100 years. So I feel bad for you all. I
blessing and a curse.
So, but that's what that's part of what I was trying to provide. And it's, now, of course, when we were starting, but I remember I had a lot of experience building Nautilus machines up to then, since I ran manufacturing engineering with my dad. So it was just one of my goals. But as you know, the parts and service business for Hammer is basically non-existent. Because not much goes wrong occasionally, but not much.
Well, yeah, and we've talked about that before, right? Your experience at Nautilus and seeing kind of the evolution of the business and the bloat and the added complexity and the changing of products led to a big tail, where then when you started Hammer, you got to start with a blank sheet of paper. And you got to outline exactly what you thought the perfect factory would be, what the parts you needed were, and then build from that sandbox so that you didn't create that historical tale of serviceable challenges.
Well, I mean, during the Great Recession, when many of the car companies went bankrupt, what bankrupted them, what was called legacy costs, and the legacy costs were maintaining, parts and pieces for products that they made, in some cases decades before, and the legacy costs for Hammer is zero because we still use the same 3 bearings, or modern versions, but they're replacement for the original bearings that we used almost 40 years ago. And all of and as you know, I mean, not that the customer knows, but we've standardized the types of pads and the bolt hole patterns and the assembly procedures, and everything's been standardized so that it makes it easy both in the factory and for the operator. So, and you probably know, the pads on the machines are in many cases interchangeable. As a matter of fact, another operator, not for you, but for a bigger type health club, because I go back to, you need to excite the customer. And a part of that is visual. So an operator years ago told me what he did. He had a large club with, dozens and dozens of my machines and stuff. And he standardized his club there where he could have 2 different colors of upholstery. And anyway, once a year, what he would do, he would take all the red upholstery off of his machines, okay? And he had I think his machines were white, and he had a set of blue upholstery on. He would put the blue upholstery
Everyone
on.
thought there was new machines. Right?
Okay, and he would rearrange them in the club just so that visually people come in would get excited.
Yeah.
And what he said, many customers would come in and say, "Wow, I love all the new machines." And all he did was change the upholstery, put a different color on, and rearrange them in the club. But that re-excited his users, okay, so that they got more involved.
Yeah, it's like the grocery stores changing everything on the shelves, and all of a sudden you see everything different,
Right?
So true.
Confusing.
So, that's a lot of work. But you have to do maintenance on your upholstery, so why not have 2 different colors? You know what I mean? And then when you take the one color off, you replace it with the ones that you've fixed before, and you do that on a schedule and move a few machines around, and that excites your users, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So, we're already getting close to the end of this, which is crazy because I feel like we could talk for hours. But I do want to talk. I know there's a lot of people that have joined in to talk a little bit about the future. Okay, now that's a big piece to this puzzle. So, JP, man, there are a lot of people that are really, really excited about the future of hammer strength, the things that we've been coming out with. Luke, you came down to Owatonna a couple months ago to check out the new Super Squat. Seemed to like that a lot. JP, do you have any insight as to what's coming in the future? Can you give our listeners some breadcrumbs
Josh
here?
Put me on the spot.
I am.
Well, he could tell you, but then he'd have to throw you.
Yeah, everything we have coming is behind the cameras.
That's true. So if you guys wanted to see what was new, you could just come here to Owatonna and check it out.
Really, we've made an intentional investment over the last 5 years to ramp up our development in plate loaded specifically. We've redone our racks. And we're going to look at some intentional efforts with selectorized too. And I'm going to be vague, and you're going to press me on this, but our intention is to continue to evolve, continue to bring new movements to the market or upgrade existing movements. We don't want to be stale. We want to make sure that we're staying on the forefront of opportunities and innovation and just interest within strength training and within hammer strength. And so I'm gonna deflect the question a little bit, but I'm gonna push it over to Luke to see if there's something from a market perspective.
Yeah, the two things I would say is, first of all, Jeff Bezos, I'm going to paraphrase, says, I'm always asked the question, what's the future look like?
Yeah.
Like, what's around the corner? And he said, that's the wrong question. No one ever asks me the right question. The right question is not what's changing in the future. The right question is what's not going to change? What is going to stay stable about consumers or humans that you can actually build a business around? And so at Amazon, of course, the answer is customers are always going to want low prices, and they're always going to want convenience.
Yeah.
He says, I can build something big and enduring around that. And so, of course, when I think about the future of hammer strength, when I think about the future of our business, is what is it about the consumer that's not going to change, that's still going to be relevant 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? That's what I think you build a business around. Well, I will mention, so that's number one. That's kind of big picture, maybe esoteric. Right now, we are on a strength training wave. I can't call it a fad or a trend, because fad or trend means it's going to die in popularity. The reality is strength training's popularity has only increased with every passing year since 1971. And right now it's at a peak. It's not about to slow down because we finally have so much awareness of all of this scientific research that says we're supposed to be strength training. I mean, in 1980, you had to compel someone to strength train. They said, well, I'm supposed to do aerobic exercise. Strength training is for people who want bigger muscles. We now know you strength train to improve your cognitive function. You strength train to ward off cardiovascular disease. The number one benefit of strength training is to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. We strength train to lower our systolic blood pressure. We strength train, of course, to improve our bone mineral density. There is more scientific research to say that strength training improves academic performance in 6-year-olds to 18-year-olds than it does to improve athletic performance. And so I ran the largest high school strength and conditioning program in the country in the early 2000s. We had every hammer strength machine made, including the H squat, in that weight room. I reported to the athletic director. If I had that job today, I'd say, no way I'm going to report to the athletic director. Strength training is more about academic performance than it is athletic performance. So we have all of this scientific research, and we have some social media, and we have some podcasters, and we have some influencers, people like Dr. Peter Attia saying, if you want to live longer, you actually have to strength train. So this is not about to go away. It's a wonderful place for people who are focused on strength training to be in. I think we're just going to see a continued surge in the popularity. Of course, that means there's going to be more competition, but it's a market that's absolutely growing.
Well, I'm really glad you said that, because I view it the same way. Some say, well, strength training is a trend right now, but I don't think we're going to get to a place where people say, well, I didn't like being strong, and I didn't like the benefits that I got from strength training. I think that's just going to continue to get infused.
We're never going back.
Yeah, exactly right. And I honestly welcome competition. I think it makes us all better. It makes us all sharper. We all have our own philosophies. A big part of ours is movement and simplicity, right? And I think it takes a lot of creativity to design for simplicity.
Well, it's hard to
judge
yourself. So I mean, I just was focused on simplicity because of my experiences to that, and it makes our business-wise, we are the only company in our industry, Life Fitness Hammer Strength, okay, that has not, major company that has not gone bankrupt.
And let me just say, simplicity is harder, but it's worth it, right? The old saying is, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter, right? Like simplicity is harder. I just finished the book written by the creative director that worked for Steve Jobs for, over 20 years. He said the one thing that makes Apple different than every other competitor is they put simplicity at the center of the business. It's like a religion. And so if you can build a business around simplicity, first of all, it's hard to do, but it's worth it. And that's a commonality among what Hammer Strength has done and what Apple's done for the better part of 3 decades.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, I think this goes back to one of the main conversations from earlier on linkages, right? We see a lot of competitors. We see a lot of different manufacturers coming out with all this sort of adjustability, and actually, you're not necessarily being more creative. You're just trying to be everything to everyone, and most of the users don't even know what those adjustments do.
Mm-hmm. It's simplicity around the adjustments. It's simplicity in the design of the machine, but it's also simplicity in product line. How many multi-joint leg movements do we need? Right? Is too many? Too many, right? There's not, I think that at one time there was literally 72 different versions of a Compaq laptop. And if you ask the average salesperson at Compaq, hey, what's the difference between our computers? It was Compaq or Dell or someone. They said, I literally have no idea. There's like 3 Apple laptops, and they're, and everyone in an Apple store understands the differences.
Right. Yep.
And so there's simplicity in every facet of the business.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. So I do want to get to a few questions. I know we're a little bit early here, but there are a lot coming in.
Are there?
Allison's behind the scenes, our program manager for Hammer Strength. She's sending me some questions.
Thank you, Lady Allison.
And some of these are really good, and so I want to jump into them. So the first one, I'm just going to jump to this one right away. Gary, what is your favorite piece of hammer equipment of all time?
That's my question also.
Yes. Everyone wants to know.
Everybody always asks me that. And believe it or not, and I can't talk about all of it because it's always, when you're an inventor, you're always working on the next thing. So
you can't name one that you haven't created yet. It's got to be
Yeah, it's something that's out there.
Okay. So my favorite category of equipment is the ground-based machines. Okay? That's my favorite category because you're standing, and if you want to take my ideas to the next level, the natural application of force, okay, which is what we're talking about, is standing in transition, in motion, while simultaneously presenting power, pushing, pulling, twisting, turning, and moving all at the same time.
Yeah.
So the ground-based machines allow you to train that way. Now, but people like to sit, okay, and that's actually why we have the sitting disease. We sit too much, okay? Now, in defense of my dad, even though I do things differently, when Nautilus was first invented, you still had to get up to change the channel or to adjust the volume, okay, on your TV. So because of 2 things, all right, because of automation, all right, and the visual gamification that has evolved, we now have billions of people on the planet, I'm not exaggerating, whose only need to move is to go to the refrigerator or the bathroom, okay? And they're now calling that the sitting disease, okay? Because of the gamification, automation, we don't need to move, okay? Well, movement is necessity, not just strength, but strength and motion, okay?
Yeah.
And that's what going back to what started Hammer. The purpose of the muscles is to move the body. So that's what I was all about, is motion. Matter of fact, and of course now it's almost laughable, but 38 years ago when I was starting out, people would come to me and still do sometimes, well, what muscle does it work? I go, I don't care, and if I have an opinion, it doesn't matter. It works this particular motion, and that's a motion you need to perform the activities and adventure that you want to participate in. You know what I mean? So that's what it's all about.
Well, I'm glad you brought up ground base because my first experience with Hammer Strength was in college when the strength conditioning coach brought in ground-based jammers.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of athletes' first introduction into hammer strength.
Right. The interesting thing, though, to me, I mean, you're an operator, so you butt in here. The ground-based machines are big deal in athletics, and you almost never see them in a health club.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah, that's Luke. I kind of want to go around the horn on this
Yeah.
question. What's your favorite hammer piece?
Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna get romantic and turn this into a 3-hour discussion. So my I would say the ones I'm romantic about as favorite is H squat. Okay,
I
so
love
you
H
got to
squat.
Google the H squat. I loved your old external rotation machine. I love the rotator cuff machine.
Yeah, that was, but we did not sell a lot of them.
Yep, I believe that. I believe that. But it was a magical machine.
Oh yeah, no, but sometimes in business,
Yeah.
you have to make business decisions.
Yeah, you're not going to walk into a health club and have everyone in line to use the external rotation machine, but it's a brilliant machine. I think the most underutilized or underappreciated hammer strength machine ever made is the tibia machine. I mean, every gym on earth should have the tibia. Every sports, I mean, everyone should be using a tibia machine. If you're a runner at all, you should be using a tibia machine. It's underappreciated. I'm going to say,
I have one of those in my personal gym.
is that right? Okay, so that's underappreciated. I would say the most underrated strength training machine ever made is the Hammer Strength Wide Chest. It's the first machine that actually feels magical.
Thank you,
But if
Luke.
I had one hammer strength machine, I could only have one. It would be, God, I got to go one upper body and one lower body. The upper body would be a hammer strength decline. The lower body would be, it used to be the hammer strength isolateral leg press. Now I would take the super squat. But I'm just a huge fan of I was raised on the isolateral leg press.
JP?
Oh, well, that's how we move. Not many people hop down the field. Okay, so we move from one leg to the other. So that's isolateral motion. So that's natural motion.
But anyone that puts a home gym in their home, I was just in Arkansas at a friend's 50th birthday party, and he said, I got a home gym, what should I buy? Hammer Strength ISO pull down incline combo. I said, that's what you got to buy. He's got that in the home gym.
Now, are we still making it?
Oh yeah, we still make.
Okay.
JP, what's yours, man? Just so we can.
Oh, I have such a hard time with this one too.
Gotta
I
pick one.
apparently had a really hard time not machine, so not good at this.
It's I've always loved the pulling machines, and partly for what you talked about earlier, right? It's and typically it's pull-ups or a cable pull-down, but there's such a different experience in the various angles of the pulling machines that you get from a DY row all the way.
So
up
what's your
to a
favorite
front
pull? I got to know.
Yeah.
I think it's the front pull down.
Okay.
Yes, the reverse grip. I love that piece. I've been really excited about the new pieces that we've introduced the last few years. So the super squat press is, an evolution of what the Cybex squat press was, and so we were excited to do that. This Pendulum X squat behind me, because of what the team was able to accomplish in creating that movement, in looking back at the H squat and incorporating some of those elements into it, I would say that one right now is probably my favorite lower body piece.
Okay.
And for the record, it is better than the H squat. Sorry, but the H squat just is kind of romantic.
So I want to get to another question.
You're not going to answer that question?
Oh, you want me to answer?
Well, yeah.
Dude, the bicep curl, man.
Saw that coming.
No, honestly, mine
Everything's
is
a
probably,
bicep curl.
That's right. You could make every machine a bicep curl, just for those listening. Luke, I have to go with the wide chest, man. That's one of my favorites. So that's my pick, man. Wide chest. Best feeling chest press ever made.
And it will just, when you first get on it, you're like, I've never experienced anything like this. There's nothing that competes with the wide chest.
Agreed. All right, so here's another good one, and then we're going to get into a little bit more philosophical question. Gary, people are wondering, how did you come up with the name Hammer Strength?
Actually, my partners, wonderful partners, Pete Brown, son of Paul Brown, the founder of the NFL, and Kim Wood, who was the first full-time professional strength coach.
Yep.
Okay. It was his idea. At first, I thought it was too macho. Okay. And he actually, when we separated from Nautilus, okay, it was a very
Unceremonious.
animosity going on there. So they were not too fond of me going off or of the Brown family. So there was talk of doing, and they did some stuff with the camera, of taking like a Thor's hammer and beating the shit out of a Nautilus shell, you know, and doing a commercial, you know, for hammer strength. And so, you know, somehow in there that, now we never actually did that commercial and never, you know, anything.
Maybe we should do it today.
But there was a lot of animosity there back in the day. So, and I thought it was too macho because I still believe that as an industry, we don't need to motivate people that are macho. Okay, they have.
They're going to work out no matter what.
They're going to work out no matter what, and it's not that. I mean, they're extremely motivated. So I was more interested in a name that would maybe help us with the 607s, as I call it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's turned out to be a great name. You know, and
Yeah, it's iconic now.
yeah, oh yeah, and you know, almost 40 years later.
So I want to get. I think this is a good segue. You mentioned Kim Wood. How much influence did ex-football players and ex-football players and people like Kim Wood and Dr. Ken Leisner have on the DNA of Hammer Strength's excellent machines?
They were tremendous influence. I mean, our salesmen were encouraged, and Kim ran the sales department. He was also the president of the company. Another little tidbit, I have never, ever been president of the company. I was just the founder inventor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, you know, and actually the acting president today is actually this guy right here. He's basically the president of Hammer. Okay, and before him it was Greg Heisman.
I mean, not quite.
Yeah, no. You are the acting president of a division
Of our little segment, right?
Of our segment, right? Okay,
Call
and so
Promotion live on this.
Kim was the president, and Pete Brown would come and visit me almost every week, usually Tuesday or Wednesday, their off day, and he would come and hang out with me, and he would bring coaches and owners and athletes, and we'd talk about exercise and stuff. And so, the salesmen were trained anytime, especially a famous coach or an athlete had an idea, then they would set it up. So Gary Jones, I would go and visit them. And in many cases, I would bring my computer with me, which was an event.
Tell the story about going to visit Ken and getting into
Ken
isolateral.
So Ken Leisner wanted me. I was building the natural machines, but they were still 2 arms at a time, 2 legs at a time. And Leisner, who was a very famous at that time in history doctor, chiropractor, and a coach, you know, and they called him Coach Ken. All right. So he wanted me to build wasn't isolateral, but I called it the natural press. And he wanted me to build one with independent movement arms. Okay. Now, my first impression of this idea was, you know, this is terrible because it's going to increase cost. It's going to make the machine more complicated, and it doesn't accomplish anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's whatever. But back to chasing cinnamon rolls, okay? This was an idea from a very famous coach. So great. I load up my computer and I go to his house. You know, it's the old saying, be careful what you ask for. So, you know, you ask for Gary Jones to show up. Guess what? I showed up. I moved in.
Even into the factories.
And brought my mainframe computer with me, you know?
Which costs more than your house, right?
Yeah. So, and it's like, okay, you want to do it? Let's do this. You know what I mean? And he actually wrote about it in one of his books about me waking him up in the middle of the night because I got an idea and I need his opinion on it. But anyway, so I built the machine. I still thought it was a stupid idea because it's independent minimum arms. It doesn't do anything. Okay? It's just independent. What did we gain? Okay? So then another coach, okay, went with me to a trade show, and we were walking back to our hotel, and we were talking about.
What was his name?
I
Yeah, I
can't
gotta know
remember
who this
right,
is.
a long, long time ago. But anyway, we were talking about this machine and training with dumbbells. Okay. So in effect now, this machine, instead of doing a barbell press, was in effect a dumbbell press because they're independent.
Right.
And then, but we were talking and we go, but you know, when you actually do dumbbell presses, if you do them at the same time, your hands converge.
Yeah.
Okay? If you do them one arm at a time, you go out like this. So go, what if, okay, now remember, I was really into advanced 3D CAD back when almost nobody was doing it. So I figured out, my theory was, I could create an axis of rotation that was parallel with the spine and drive that axis of rotation through the shoulder joint and then use that as a pivot and pivot the individual work boxes to simulate doing it how you would do is a dumbbell, and I was at the same time I was studying Taekwondo, which is the high block motion. So I built that machine, as a prototype. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, once again, it came from conversations. So then I sent it to the Bengals. Well, I mean, before the end of the day, it's like, what else can you do?
Right.
Okay, so the very next thing I did was the opposite motion. Okay, and then the response to that was, and nowadays you would call it was viral. I mean, it was like instantaneous. Boom. All right. And matter of fact, Ken Leisner actually, now since I had to be an individual, after I built the machines, it was like, what do we call it? What do we call it? So technically, I guess the medical term is ipsilateral.
Yep.
But of course, you can't use that as a trademark. So it was Leisner that came up with the idea, well, let's call it isolateral.
I had no idea Ken Leisner influenced that. Wow.
So we called it isolateral. We had to call it something.
Right.
Okay. And then it was back to just, chasing those breadcrumbs. Okay. So everybody was like, ooh, what could you do this motion? You know what I mean? And I was moving in that direction and studying martial arts. So, the isolateral bench press is the motion you use to break boards in karate, Taekwondo.
Right.
And the opposite of that is the iso row. The isolateral high block, the isolateral incline press is the high block or the standing dumbbell press, you know what I mean? And the low block in martial arts, that's the, the decline press, and the opposite's the isolateral low row. And we built different versions of it. And it, like I say, it's kind of snowballed and went viral. Every machine, it's no different than, all the people that have dated Taylor Swift, has one or two songs that have been written about him, okay? And every one of our machines has a story because different people would, say, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And I would start working on it.
Yeah.
I didn't see Taylor Swift making the podcast, but when you were observing dumbbell presses, for example, is that where you got some inspiration for wrist angle?
Oh, yes. I noticed that. Well, what I noticed initially was that when people trained with dumbbells, the position of their handles was not the position that machines used at that time. And when I say machines, I'm not talking about just exercise machines, tools, everything in the world. I mean, all of you buy a stroller for your kids today, it's got an ergonomic handle on it. Your hand drill's got an ergonomic handle. Everything. The fighter jets,
right,
okay, that they built for the pilots has an ergonomic handle. Hammer strength, we were the first people to do all of that. Yeah.
So you hit on this point. This is another question. I might have to wrap up this question, but it says Hammer offers a lot of, JP, this might be for you, Luke, as well, offers a lot of leg press and squat machines. So if you're limited on space, what would you consider to be the best choices while keeping the footprint to a minimum? We have things like the hack squat, the belt squat, linear leg press, V squat, pendulum X. What would you say to that?
Well, you want to take a stab at that first? I've got an
mine's
answer.
super squat, but you may have a different answer.
Yeah, so, and this goes back to
to my, it's whichever one you like the butt.
That's right.
No, it goes back to if homie don't like it, homie won't do it. Our magic trick that we called it when we still owned, it was a private company, we owned Hammer. We kept the showroom in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, the Kong room?
That had the Kong room. We had one of everything, and including a bunch of prototypes, okay? So And we would openly joke about customers, not in a bad way, okay? Customers that wanted to open up a gym and buy a bunch of hammer machines, and they would have a list, okay? And typically it's around 10 machines that they wanted to buy, okay? And it was an open secret. Fly them to Cincinnati, and they'll go in the Kong room, and two things will always change, okay? One, the list is going to get longer, thing number one, and the list is going to change because they come in there thinking that they like this bench press. But when they try the 3 other bench presses, they go, I think I'm going to get this one instead. And I was never offended by that in any way. You know, different people like different machines, okay? We used to actually make, for football and basketball, vertical grip handles on some of our machines.
Inclines and elbow.
Okay, because that was what they wanted for those for basketball and sports. They did not want a handle like this. They wanted it like this. So I had to figure out how to make ergonomic vertical, more, we called them vertical, they weren't straight vertical. And that variety was there. And it goes back to my original philosophy to inspire, motivate, assist, and protect the user so that they're excited about working out the next time.
Yeah, and that fits right into one of the primary principles that we operate with today is variety of movements.
So, guys, we got a few minutes left. I want to ask you, and again, I thank you guys both for coming here. You've both been a part of Hammer's story. One as the founder, inventor. One as a champion of its use, if you will. What would you guys, if you were to talk to the folks tuning in today, what would you guys hope that they take away from the conversation today? Gary, we'll start with you.
Me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, being fit is the biggest problem in fitness. Is it's not a pill, it's not a surgery, and you can't hire somebody to do it for you. And the biggest problem in fitness is the news media, and in a different way than politically. The news media is infatuated with super athletes, and that's all they want to talk about. So it's hard for an average person that has a job, a spouse, a dog, a yard, you know what I mean, kids that they, and other hobbies that they want to do.
Right.
And all they can read about is that, Madonna trains for 2 hours every day. She's got a personal trainer, a personal masseuse, personal chef, you know what I mean, a personal workout gym. And the average person, that's all you read about. So they, over time, subconsciously begin to think wrongly that that's the only way to be fit. Well, apologize for bragging, Luke here has proven that you can be very fit working out once or twice a week for 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the real purpose here. So quit paying attention to the news media fascination with the perfect workout, okay? And something is always infinitely better than nothing.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, and I personally work out for about 45 minutes twice a week, okay, ground-based machines. I sprint, okay, for 2 minutes, okay, on a hammer air bike every day, once, sometimes twice a day, okay, and I get average 8 to 10,000 steps a day, and I eat healthy. You've been around me a long time. But I'm not a fanatic about it. You don't need to be a fanatic to be healthy. And that's the real thing.
That's good.
Okay, so, like I say, well, sign up for his podcast and listen to him. You're going to be healthy if you just work out a couple times a week, walk. The latest research is you only need 7,000 steps a day. And actually, or I should say you don't need 7,000 steps. And
diminished returns after 7,000.
Yeah, after 7,000 steps a day, unless you're a professional athlete, there's there's no value in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the things that, as an industry, we need to get out there. Is you can be healthy, doing this.
That's
you don't
good.
have to be doing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Luke, what about you?
My two would be number one, resistance exercise is medicine. We are strength training because of the robust health protective benefits of strength training. That's number one. And number two is if you're someone who is passionate about strength training equipment and you've purchased Hammer Strength, it's just, I think, exciting and important to connect with the history, the legacy, the romance, that there are people behind the brand that have poured their heart and souls into the innovations that we experience. And that's one thing I love about Hammer Strength is I know it started with you and Kim, and JP, I now know you, and I've known you for a number of years, and you've carried on that legacy. I love investing in a product where I know that there's a history and a legacy and a story that matters, and that's pretty rare, and it's so true with Hammer Strength.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you guys. Luke, thank you. Gary, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to all who tuned in. Just as a note, you will get access to this on demand right after you exit this webinar. You can go and you can actually download the video. Folks that were not able to make it, you're going to still have access. It'll be emailed directly to you. And I thank you all for joining. Have a good rest of your day, afternoon, night, wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.